Hi, Clint Coons here with Anderson Business Advisors, and in this session I'm going to discuss who should be the beneficiary of your land trust. You know, just the other day I saw an individual who brought me their land trust that they'd set up, and they'd done this. You know, they set it up for asset protection, which a lot of people do. So they created their land trust right here. And, you know, when you're setting up a trust, you have a trustee and a beneficiary. So you have the trustee, and they named an individual here as their trustee, which, you know, was a problem. Watch my segment on who should be your trustee. So that was an issue. I'm not going to go into it in this segment. But anyways, they had themselves as this individual here as a trustee, and then they had their limited liability company set up down here as the beneficiary of the land trust. Now I asked them, I said, why is your LLC the beneficiary of the land trust? And the answer was, well, I've done it for asset protection purposes. I want to make sure that if something happens, that is, you know, this trust is going to own a piece of property here. And if somebody sues the trust, I want to ensure that if the trust gets sued, if I'm the member in this LLC, that they can't come after me personally, that the lawsuit hits the trust, it goes to the LLC, and I have asset protection. Come on, Clint, it's basic 101. That's why I did it. Well, I understand the rationale here, as probably you do as well. But the thing is that we missed a crucial step in setting it up this way. Because the question I asked him, as I said, who owns the property right now that you intend to put into this trust? And he said, well, I own the property. I said, well then this is where we need to change what you've done here. When you set up a land trust where you own the property, we're not going to make your LLC the initial beneficiary of that trust, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to name you as the property owner, as the initial beneficiary. And the reason we're doing this is because when you transfer title into that trust, you know, you file a deed, many times the assessor's office will then ask, you know, is this an exempt transfer? Is it going to result in a taxable event? Well, if the grantor, which is the person who currently owns the property, which is you, is also not the beneficiary of the trust, then the answer is it could result in a taxable event. So you do not want to name that LLC initially as your trust beneficiary. You want to be the beneficiary of the trust. Or if it's you and your spouse, then the two of you would be listed as the beneficiaries of this trust because you're both the grantors currently on the property. Now, once this is set up and you have your trust drafted and you've deeded the property into the trust name, then what you're going to do is you will have your LLC that you've set up over here. Now this LLC can be filed in the state where the property is located. It could be set up in, say, Wyoming. It really doesn't matter where you create this LLC because the LLC does not hold the property. The only time that's going to come into play where it's going to be important is when we're dealing with tenants. So watch the segment where I discuss what to do with tenants and land trusts. That's where we're going to get into this in more detail. But for purposes of this video here, let's assume that this property here is located in Tennessee, then we'll make this a Tennessee LLC. So they're in the same state. Now what you'll do is you're the initial beneficiary of your trust. You're going to assign your interest to the limited liability company. You'll assign that over. And again, I got a segment on that you can watch as well on how to assign the interest in. So you're going to assign the interest over to your limited liability company. So you're no longer going to be listed as that beneficiary for purposes of this trust. It's going to be the LLC, and you're going to be the member in that limited liability company. So that's how it flows. So now if something happens again, we're back to that same point. They attack the trust, and then the liability flows into the LLC, and you're not going to be held personally responsible for that. So it's key that when you create these documents that you do it in an orderly fashion and that you set it up in the way in which I explained so that we don't have any loose ends out there. You give somebody an angle to come in and pierce your asset protection structure because you didn't follow the proper procedures. So when it comes to naming a beneficiary, just use these simple rules. If you're the grantor, that is, you own the property, then you're going to be the initial beneficiary of your trust. If I own property in an LLC or a corporation, well then that entity would be the initial beneficiary of that trust. So all you got to figure out is who is the owner that is your trust beneficiary. My name is Clint Coons with Anderson Business Advisors.